Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this session. I'm with award-winning journalist and author Zubeida Jaffer. My name is Sam Mathe. I'd like to apologize for the lack of the video. Before I start with the actual interview, I'd also like to thank the festival organizers, particularly Spindile Songwa, Ismail Mahomet, Ishmael Sibia, and Pomola Sikamoto. I've also been asked to thank and recognize the following sponsors and partners: the University of KwaZulu-Natal, the National Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Arts and Culture, Amazwi Museum of South African Literature, French Institute of South Africa, Foundation for Human Rights, National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, Imbiza Journal of African Writing. Hello, Zubeida, welcome. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you this afternoon.
Sam, I was so looking forward to seeing you, but now
I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that, but I can see you. You look stunning, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming through.
Thank you.
Okay, and sorry for your friend. She's got our prayers.
Yeah, Sam, I really, it's a very difficult moment for me, and I very nearly let you know that I cannot participate in this because my dear friend Cecil Iso passed away this afternoon. He was a Robben Islander. He spent 12 years on Robben Island. He was a brilliant mind. But then I thought, let me do it this way on the suggestion of my daughter. Let me dedicate this time that I'm spending with you in his memory, because he was an avid reader. He was, in fact, in this last years, as he lived in a very small little house on the West Coast here, he created a library, and he was always buying interesting and amazing books, and I would go there, and I felt that this was partly my library. He was my library. And so I feel bereft today, but I also want to celebrate it at this great festival that Ismail and others have kept going for 24 years. And just to say that we have lost a great intellectual and a great reader and a great lover of books. And so in his memory, I speak to you today.
Okay, we lost you for some seconds there. So just writing a report, quick report, but you are back. So you said he was a Robben Islander.
He was a Robben Islander. He was for some time, I think, working on his PhD as well. And I don't think he completed that, but he was a brilliant mind. If I had any, thought or any query that I was grappling with, then I would call him.
He will be there for you.
And he's now gone,
Yeah, so sorry about that.
Great sense of loss, because when we lose people who are immersed in the intellectual and the book world, then we lose our libraries, a little bit of our library.
That's for sure.
Yes, and so, but the work that's done by the festival and what's being done here at such a, continuous rate is so good for our country.
Oh, definitely. And, I'm just impressed by the fact that you have been in journalism for 40 years. Most journalists don't last that long. Eventually, maybe after 20 or 25 years, they branch out and perhaps focus on writing books or other professions. But you have been around for that long. I mean, it's a lifetime. What has really kept you going? With all these ups and downs of the profession, and journalism being such a a thankless profession.
Yes,
But you've been going through. Yeah.
Sam, in 2017, I went on pilgrimage to Mecca. And the big question then was, all the existential questions. Who am I? What am I? And am I a journalist? Am I Zubeida? What am I? And who are you who are we in the end when we stand in front of God, And I realized then very clearly that I'm not a journalist. I'm not a writer. I'm not any of these things. I'm just a human being and a child of God. And but I chose a certain profession because that was the gifts that I was given. And I didn't even choose it. It kind of just happened. But because it happened in that way where it was thrust upon me, I've always felt that this was the most comfortable and the most natural thing for me to do, and a privilege. And so I have taken various turns over the years. But in the end, I've always recognized or felt that I was a journalist, and there to tell the stories of the people around me. So even if I'm I'm essentially, I suppose, retired now, but I don't see myself as retiring from my professional life.
And tell me about your faith before the pilgrimage and after, meaning currently. Before the pilgrimage, you were born into the religion as a Muslim.
Yes, I do believe all the religions are basically the same. We just get, I always tell my daughter that we get into different vehicles, but we are on the same road. Yes. And so all this thing that we quibble and we want to prove to each other this is better and that's better, it's a lot of nonsense.
It's unnecessary. Yeah.
It's essentially at the core we have a spiritual side.
Yeah.
And at core we practice different religions in order to understand that spiritual side.
Exactly.
Just as you go to the gym to strengthen yourself physically, you have some spiritual practice to make sense of that other dimension which you don't really understand.
So the pilgrimage is that what it meant for you?
Yes.
Strengthening your faith, your spiritual faith.
Yes.
In the religion that you're born into.
Yes, it's one of the things that you are obliged to do, and so I just at a certain point felt that I was ready to do that. And basically, you participate in the rituals that force you to understand that you are nothing, and in the end. You only have, when you in your grave or when you're in that final moments of your life, all that you have are your deeds.
And was there a time in your life where you had questions, you had doubts about the faith?
Oh yes, as a young person.
As a woman in particular.
Yes, Sam, as a young person, there was a time when I felt that I wanted nothing to do with all this. There was a time when, at university, that I felt that our religious leadership was not standing, on issues of justice. Okay. And we're not following, what is required, what I understood to be, what I've been taught by my parents to be the essence of the religion. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. Or I wanted very little to do with it. And I said to my family that I don't reject God or anything like that, but I cannot live with this, hypocrisy that I see. But that lasted for a very short while. And when the shift came when I was in detention in 1980, when I was a journalist at the Cape Times, and I was arrested for exposing police brutality, and I was tortured and beaten, and I was essentially in the belly of the beast. And this is what I describe in my first book, Our Generation. It's when I had to come to terms with the fact and face strongly the fact that in the end, I am who I am. And in the end, I need that rope. I need to hold on to, the certainties, or it's not really certainties, but the faith that I've been trained in, and raised in. And from that moment, I accepted that this is the faith that I was brought into, and this is the faith that will carry me through all life's difficult moments.
And eventually, you became comfortable with that identity.
Yeah, I've been comfortable. I've been comfortable with it for a very long time.
Yeah.
I said to my dad many years ago, I said, Dad, the Muslim community in South Africa represents 2% of the population. And even though you wouldn't think that, but it's 2% of the population. And so I will always respect that. I will always uphold that. I will always work in support of that community. But I cannot be expected to be just part of that community. Because I'm part of all the communities around me here in the Cape. I see myself as part of the broader South African community. And I see myself as learning and drawing strength from everybody. And then across, of course, across the continent and across the world. We cannot, well, I can't speak for anybody else, but I cannot live a small life in a big.
Okay, I'm losing you a bit there.
I cannot. Should I try again? Should I try again, Sam? It seems I cannot. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay. There was a problem with the connection, but I can hear you now.
Okay. I cannot see myself as a writer or as an individual being confined to a small little community, because the beauty of life is when you understand and you see that you're actually part of everybody.
And tell me about this book, Beauty of the Heart, the biography of Charlotte McClake. To what extent did it open other facets of South African life for you, in terms of you as an individual understanding the broader South Africa, your travels even abroad, in the process of working on it, in the process of the research, particularly coming this side where she practiced activism, places like Kliptown, the type of people you met who are not necessarily share the same religious background with you, but just ordinary people that you met. How was this journey, basically?
It was fantastic. For example, when I went to Kliptown in Johannesburg and saw her home and visited her church, I was asked to speak at the church, and was at the Sunday service and told and shared with everybody that what I was doing, and that I was trying to piece together my Charlotte story. And so I went to the church in Ramagopa village, and I was so deeply impressed with how beautifully it was being kept by the local people there, by the villagers. It's so beautifully kept. the only thing that I was concerned about, and I would like to do something about it, was that I thought the photograph of Mum Charlotte on the wall was far too small to kind of, express.
To capture her larger than life. Yeah.
And so I've been talking to people to say that I would like to see an artist paint the photograph of her.
Yeah.
On the cover of the book, that is a photograph that has only emerged. We've only seen it for the first time after 125 years. And when I saw that photograph coming through my screen for the first time and found this photo, well, I didn't personally find it. There were people who sat with it in London, but it was like something went through me. It was like something, because suddenly I saw her eyes. I connected with her eyes, and something happened, and I was in another state that day. I think I spoke to Rhodes Vice Chancellor Sizwe Mabizela, and I said, I don't know what's going on with me, but I'm just beyond excited. I'm beyond, because I started realizing that, here's this woman, and I've been finding her texts, and I've been reading about her, and I've been pulling out my hair, because finding all the little facets was so difficult. But as it was coming together, I thought, my God, what a privilege I've been, that I am working on this, because this woman's story was gone.
Yes, just erased from the pages of history.
Yeah, written out. And also written out not only by the colonial and apartheid authorities, but written out by us, because many people have told me today, and that they never knew that this woman was present at the first meeting of the ANC.
Of the ANC in 1912.
So what does that say?
And there's a number of books that tell that story of the ANC in 1912, and she's not mentioned.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
And some of the people who have authored these books are part of the liberation movement.
That's right.
Yes.
And people in the liberation movement themselves have told me they never knew. And
about her existence?
They knew about her existence, because there was a school, a preschool, I think, named after in exile, but they didn't know that she had been present at the first meeting.
Oh, I see.
They didn't know that. So when the January the 8th statement said that she was a delegate to the ANC conference, I thought, hey, hang 10 years. She wasn't a delegate. She just rocked up.
Just rocked up.
She just rocked up,
Yeah.
As she rocked up in 1902 to the first SANIC meeting, and they rejected it. They said, no, women are not allowed.
Wow. And but exactly how did you discover her? When was the first, very, very, very first time in your life as a journalist and a writer? When was the very, very first time when you realized that there was this remarkable historical figure in South Africa?
I was on the campus of the University of the Free State as a writer in residence. And I was there when I arrived there. Shortly after I arrived there, I saw a poster which said that there was a Charlotte Maxeke memorial lecture. And then I was with Professor Jonathan Jansen as we were walking on the campus. And I said to him, I don't really know about this. I've heard the name, the hospital, all that, but I don't really know much about her. And, so where can I go to find out more about this lecture and information? So he sent me to an office. I went there, and I wasn't very happy with I thought the information was very sparse and very you know. And I told him this, went back to him at some point, and I just said, hey, I went to the office, and I don't think there's much. I mean, there is information, but I don't think it's really much, and what a pity, you know. I never thought beyond that. Then he turned to me and he said to me, now why don't you do the research and write the story?
And which year was that?
It was 2014, I think.
Ah, very recent. Wow.
Very recent. And then, you know, what was Sam, you know, what was amazing, what for me was, I always remember, when he said that, I looked at him and I said, yes, I will. Now, why it was amazing was because many people come to me and ask me to write their stories, their books and whatever. And my first response always is to say no. And the reason why I say no is that I'm aware, and you as a writer would be aware, that once you write someone's story, you live with them, you know, day in, day out. You live with them, are with them. You know, you have to be prepared to live with them. So when you choose to write about somebody, you must know that you're happy to, you know, live with him. I mean, Luli Kalinikos just spent 10 years on Oliver Tambo's biography. So, I mean, it's a big commitment, you know, it's a really big, if you're serious about capturing the essence of the person.
Definitely.
It's a big commitment. And so I always say no. I always feel I must first say no. I can always think about it, you know. And I've had judges and I've had politicians and I've had people asking me. And I've always said no first. And with Charlotte, I said yes. With Mom Charlotte, I just said yes. And there were many moments in the 3 years that I worked on the book that I was sorry that I said yes. I was very sorry. I was very sorry that I said yes, because it was so hard. It was
I can imagine.
It was, you know, it really, really was very hard, because I couldn't interview anybody. I couldn't, you know, I had to find sources that could confirm, you know, and because of my training as a journalist, I always need 2 sources. So I was pulling out my hair, you know. And the issue around her son is still contested. Post the publication of the book, there's still different versions of whether the son died at 4, whether the son lived longer, or where's the son. So I really made a very huge effort. I went to Home Affairs. I tried to get documentation. I tried to get birth certificates, death certificates, you know, and all this, you know, was almost impossible. And in the end, I'd come to the conclusion that all the indications are that he died when he was 4 and he was buried in Ramagopa. But that is still an open question, because since publishing the book, you know, there've been different versions that have come my way. And so that is the difficulty. And so there's lots of further research that has to be done.
And how much did you get from Kliptown?
Sorry?
How much in terms of information did you get from her house in Kliptown?
Not a lot of information, because the house is there. The house is very poorly looked after. I don't know what the situation is now. It had a heritage plaque on it, but it's very, very poorly maintained by the Gauteng government. And so that was not nice to see. And then the church.
The grave?
The grave was better. And I think now it's much better. And the church, which she was involved in building, she was also not very well maintained. You know, and there was a lot of confusion. For example, the priest, in our conversations as we walked across the railway line, we walked from the church right through to our home with a group of people, and they were taking me there to see the home. And the priest said to me he wants me to meet one of the congregants at some point because, he kind of suggested that she was the person who knew most about Charlotte and had known Charlotte. And then I realized that even he's not, computing that there's no way that a congregant of his could have known Charlotte.
For somebody who passed away in 1939.
Yes. So there was the problem with this was that there was lots of fables, lots of different stories.
Different versions, yeah.
And it was a very, very difficult because even within the family, there was, different versions. And so, I just hope that there will be more research done because there are many elements. For example, the Amy Church, because she brought the Amy Church to South Africa, and I tried to record that as diligently as possible. But there's much more work that has to be done because there are more records.
So these are records that have surfaced maybe after you've published your book? Not really.
No, it's just I'm aware, that I didn't go deeply into the church.
Yeah. I see.
I'm aware that I couldn't, I had to have a cutoff, I couldn't go on. And because it was also affecting my health, and it really took a very big toll on me.
On you.
Because it wasn't anything compared to my other two books where I had the narrative. I had, the
story was there already.
And then you've got to fill it in. But this was a case where I didn't know the narrative.
You had blanks, and then you had to fill in the blanks.
Huge blank.
Yeah. But you did it's a pioneering work. It's a seminal text on her life and her times, and it's a wonderful reference for whoever is interested in her story. But what I would also like to know is, since its publication, is it the type of text that the society in general and the authorities in particular have shown interest in, particularly in the schools and universities?
Not at a level that I expected, Sam. Not at the level I expected. It has been a hard slog for me. It's been an unsupported slog. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating a fact.
Yeah.
It's been ridiculous when I look at, even, people in leadership, they'd expect me to give them the book to them free of charge, And this, I just wonder to myself whether people understand that this is a book that must be in every South African home. This is a book that our children must grow up with. This is a story that we must be familiar with because it really stretches from the beginning of her life in 1871 through to 1939, and it gives her the sense. It gives the sense of a period that we must all be familiar with, And there's so many complaints about, people don't know history, they don't need history, and now the government is, working hard to talking about making history compulsory. My personal position is that that's absurd. You don't need history to be made compulsory. You need to develop texts at every level of every standard, so that people get exposed to these, essential stories. Jan van Riebeeck was with us in South Africa for 8 years, Sam. 8 years, did you know that?
No, I wasn't aware.
Yes, 8 years. If you go on my website, The Journalist, you'll see I wrote a story about. He was here for 8 years. I don't want to swear now. With a thing like this, I can swear,
You get emotional, yeah.
And I've been taught not to swear, but I can, I feel like I can pull out He was here for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it was created into even the story that we know is not entirely true. I mean, Tariq Millet in his book has written about it, you know, what's it, 1652, the live 1652.
Yes.
I mean, but we all know it. We all grew up with it. That's where our story starts. And
it's a big story that never really existed.
Yes, but
that created.
That must stop. Yeah. We must have a different national narrative. We must start, you know, 200,000 years ago with Mapungubwe.
Yes.
Or whatever, we must start.
Or even before. Yes.
Yes, we must start, and then we must grow up with that story. And
exactly.
Then in primary school, and I mean, I can tell you, I've been trying to make an effort, but no luck. Primary school, I would like to do, and I'm ready to do, a primary school version of the Charlotte story. But do you think that there's anybody who's prepared to
the support
champion this? Champion? No.
The support.
Nobody's like a goes in one. So we just need a couple of texts, you know, that children must grow up with.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, yeah. And of course, this year marks 150 years since the birth in 1871, I think.
Yes.
I was wondering if there are any events that are intended to mark this milestone and to stimulate interest, to use the year as a moment to say, this is the historic figure, Charlotte Mathe, and just to create hype around her, for lack of a better word.
Yes, the Tulis Makania, the grandnephew of Mam Charlotte, has been very brave and has started something called the Charlotte Mathe Institute, Charlotte Mania Mathe Institute, and they are for the first week of April, from the 1st of April through to the 7th of April, they are going to have a series of events focusing on Mam Charlotte. I believe one, it's probably going to be mainly virtual, but one is in the Eastern Cape where she was born, other is in Limpopo province. And I think there's talk about the president delivering a memorial lecture on the 7th of April for her birthday.
For her birthday.
Mark her birthday. I think, it's not confirmed, but I've heard that. So there are a number of things that are happening. And then on the 8th of April, with the help of some people in Johannesburg, we're having a special panel discussion on the book, Beauty of the Heart, in order to draw together young voices and young minds to interrogate this legacy. And even with the launch of the publishing company, I actually really decided to do it this year because of the 150th anniversary. There was no urgency really. I thought I could do it anytime, even next year. But then I realized there's no point in taking control of my books and republishing them after the 150th anniversary of Charlotte Mathe, because I'm hoping, of course, we are hoping against hope that the public and people out there are going to buy this book and they're going to spread the story and they're going to read the story. And I'm giving it my best shot. And I really hope that every history teacher in the country will have, will have the story. But more than that, Sam, I have realized in the process of preparing for this, for taking charge of my books, that I have 3 books starting in 1871 and ending in 2001. 3 stories.
Wow.
Mam Charlotte's story, then Aisha Bibi Dawood's story was charged with treason with Madiba. and I tell the story in Love in the Time of Treason. And then my own book, Our Generation, which deals with the 70s and 80s. So here you have 3 books that cover a period in our history. And if read in trio, I do believe that it will do a lot of people a lot of good. I never thought of it like this until very recently, until about, say, 2 months ago. But it just became very clear. Oh my God, I'm sitting with 3 stories of 3 women that
from
cover
different eras.
Yes, and cover just about every element of our experience.
And covering, this is 2 centuries?
Yes.
2 centuries, or over 2. Yes. That's quite remarkable. And the story of Aisha Dawood is still an untold story. I think probably one of the reasons being some of your books haven't really be exposed probably the way you have loved to. You would have loved them to be exposed in terms of how they were marketed in the bookshops, in the book market, basically. So somebody like Aisha Dawood, I'm quite fascinated that we have this personality who lived through this era, but still an unknown person in the history of our liberation struggle. Can you share a bit with us in that regard? Who she was, her background?
Yeah, hers is a remarkable story because she was, you could say, not an average, but a person from Worcester who had left school in Standard 8, who was working in a father's shop, who by all accounts on the surface of things was just an average person from a rural area in South Africa. But she was no average person because she was reading the newspapers to her father every day and telling him about the political situation in the 40s and 50s. And through that, she became politicized. So when the Defiance campaign started in the early 50s, she went to volunteer. And she organized one of the biggest Defiance campaigns in Worcester compared to anywhere in the country. And this is the story of a young woman who was principled and who was bold and who went to jail several times. And I tell the story from the point of view, or I place it I call it Love in the Time of Treason, because I place it within the context of the love affair or the love relationship with herself and her husband. Because I thought, often we are so bored by reading these standard texts. Say this happened and that happened and that happened. We all know those things happen.
So there's a very human element in the story. It's a human story.
There's a very human element. And I had the privilege this weekend to spend some time with Dr. Wally Serote. And he just wanted to read the book, the Aisha book. And he was reading it and reading it and reading it. But then I said, did you come to the part where you saw that Madiba and others were put into a cage and in the drill hall, a wire mesh cage? What did you think of that? So he said, what? He said, they were put into a cage. I said, don't you know that they were put into a cage when they were on trial? And then he said to me, no, he's never known this. And then I went to fetch my copy of the book and I read to him. I read to him how they came to the drill hall, the one, and they were in a cage, Sam. There was a cage. The state had constructed a cage and they had to walk into this cage and sit in this cage. And then everybody was so shocked and there was just a silence. And then one of the trialists wrote a little note and pinned it onto the cage and it said, don't feed me. And then everybody laughed because, it was like they were animals in this cage.
They were animals in the cage.
Now it's an extraordinary story about a time that we, you know, that is part of our history, you know, that we don't.
That's a great story. You know, just to share with you, I've written an article on drill hall back in the days, I think around 2003. This was for Drum. This was published in Drum magazine.
Yeah.
And in that story, I've included the treason trial.
Yeah.
But at the time, drill hall was what we'll call a squatter camp. There were all these homeless people who were living. I'm not sure what has happened with it since then. But I never came across that part about the prisoners living in cages. This is news to me, and it just makes me want to read Aisha Dawood's book.
You will get the copy. You will get a copy soon. Now people are going to buy it. It's going to fly out of my online shop.
Yeah, and it will be great to review it as well.
Thank you, Sam. I'll be so grateful to do that. And we will have a special, in fact, I'd like to invite you to, we will arrange a special, what we're doing is we're launching the publishing company on next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. But we just launching, it's only an hour. It's talking about the essence of what the company will do and about the 3 books, etc.
And that's number 10. That's number 10 publishers.
Number 10 publishers, yes.
Yeah.
Then we're going to have, on the 8th of April, we're going to have a panel discussion on beauty of the heart. And then hopefully on the 25th of May or around about there, we are going to have a panel discussion on our generation. And then at this point in August, it seems we are going to focus on Aisha Bibi Dawood, and I hope that you will participate in the panel. I'm inviting you now.
I hope so. Thank you for the invitation. I'll definitely be there. Let's talk a bit about the name of your publishing house. This is number 10. Is that an address where you grew up in Wynberg?
Yes, I live at number 10. And my very good friend, an artist, school friend, Derek Carlson, he said to me, he came up with this idea. And so it's number 10 publishers. And I think that it grounds me, that the fact that it's number 10 is sort of grounds me.
Yes.
That's where I've lived. My family has lived on this piece of property for over 60 years. I'm part of this community. I'm very proud of that. I've got a fantastic street that I live on. We're all connected via WhatsApp and we help one another. And so I am extremely proud of that. It always will be my base. And then along with...
So I can imagine there's a lot of stories. I think I'm losing you. Yeah, I was losing you there. I was losing you a bit, but I think you're back.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a slight technical hitch, but I think you are back now. Yes, yeah, I was saying I can imagine our generation mention of number 10 in our generation. You know, the memories, childhood memories, and all that. And of course, that's another book that I would really, really love to read.
Yes. I hope that you will read the 2 books. It's coming. It's in Johannesburg already, and it will be posted to you soon, Sam. I've asked them to post it to you, deliver it to you. And as I said to the interview on Cape Talk yesterday, that I can do all this. I can, you know, I'm taking control, because I do believe that we as creatives, we've got to start looking ahead and understanding that we cannot no longer hand over our intellectual capital and our stories and our work just so easily.
Yes.
It's not a simple problem to solve, but in the long run, we have to be very careful, because we've got great stories, we've got great writers, smart people, all of you, And, you know, what are we doing? What are we leaving for the, you know, for the next generation? Is it just going to be owned by the former Afrikaans publishing houses?
Publishers.
Is it just going to be, you know, sold to Netflix? Is it just going to be, how do we engage?
And make money for other people, other
people.
Other than the generation, the children of the authors.
That's right. And we're handing over our work, and we have got no financial benefit from it, as you correctly said. And so one of the things that I want to do this year, I mean, you know, it's only myself and my daughter, and a small team of people helping. And so we don't have the kind of capacity to, you know, just to solve everything. But one of the things that I want to engage with all of you is, what should the business model be? How I'm in a way solving my challenge.
I see. But in the long term, you are hoping that whatever model you will settle on will benefit other writers, upcoming writers.
Yeah, I'm already being inundated, and I'm explaining to people, I can't, you know, publish their books. I mean, this year I can just about publish mine, you know.
Yeah.
3 versions.
Revisions.
Audio, I can do that. But I can say, let's say down the line, I don't know if this, you know, I'll be, you know, my life will be how long I live or whatever, but I don't know even if I'll get there. But the question is, let's say Number 10 publishers endures, and then we have a beautiful story, somebody's beautiful story, and the writer comes. Then what is my relationship with that writer? Is it, and I would like to, and people may say I'm mad, but I would like to say that the writer's got to be the central person in the equation. Yes, I, as Number 10 publishers, will have to earn something from this relationship, but I'm not going to take ownership of that writer's work. I don't want ownership. I feel, look, these are just thoughts still, Sam.
That's
still,
fair, yeah, but that sounds fair.
I mustn't take ownership of the writer's work. It belongs to them. But if I facilitate all this, then surely I must also earn from it. So, but it mustn't be I do all the earning and the writer is, looking like an idiot. Yeah, idiot, which is happening. I mean, it is happening all over the show.
Yeah.
And so let's hope that in conversation with all of you, with many of you over the next year or two, that we will push this forward. I mean, our country is in a very difficult moment,
That's true.
But it doesn't mean that we mustn't push the process forward. We've already come a long way. We're 40 years into. I mean, I've been in this for 40 years, and I feel that all the time we must build institutions, structures. But for the first time, in the last, say, 2-3 years, I've become aware that we haven't, until we fully take back our financial independence, we are not going to progress.
I see.
You see, we can't progress because we'll always be cap in hand. We'll always be asking, oh, can you support what I'm doing? Or can you do this? Or can you do that?
And talking about that, it reminds me of the funding model in this country, where artists get funding from the state. And in reality, even though these are public funds, in reality, most artists don't benefit. They're not beneficiaries of that system that has been put in place. And that is why today, for instance, we have the problems that we are having, that we say musicians staging sit-in, for instance, here in Johannesburg at the National Arts Council. It suggests a problematic relationship between artists and the authorities.
Yes.
What is your take on that? And how do you say, and is there any way of resolving this, at least in the long run? This dependency on funding.
Yeah, I think we've got to think differently. We've got to think differently.
Yeah.
For example, Jerusalem, we know, some of us, somebody's got to sit that young man down and make sure that, these official videos now over 300 million hits on YouTube. So
Yes.
who's sitting him down and making sure that that this gets monetized and that he's in charge and that nobody just, disrupts him. I don't get the impression that the state, that the government is serious about this. But, so there has to be there are artist collectives that are grappling with these things, but they must, you see, what we haven't done up till now, we will moan and groan and fight and argue and scream that the government isn't supporting us properly.
But we need a permanent solution.
We need to take charge of it. And for example, this company that I started at first, I thought, I must get some financial support. I must get help with, printing the books. I must do. And very soon I realized, and I'm glad that I did, there's going to be no help coming. There's going to be no support. And if maybe there is support, but the effort that you have to put into, you're going to have to, you've got to beg, and you've got to, it's just awful.
Which is the problem now.
Yeah. And so I thought to myself, no. I said to my daughter, look, I'm going to take my savings and I'm going to do this. And maybe the public doesn't support us, then, well, the public doesn't support us. But at least I would have put my work in order and in a proper place.
Exactly.
There, I will have control over it. If you down the line and I'm gone, you sell it, or there's a movie made on Charlotte, or whatever, you will get the benefit of that.
And we have these pictures that you bought for the Charlotte Mathe book in England, but this is about a South African.
Yes.
How do we rectify that? Why are you buying?
These pictures must be brought home. But I can't do that. I can lobby for it, but there surely must be, a state institution that will ensure this happens. But no, there's no movement on that. There's no passion. There's no passion. Yeah. But it should be. It was taken 125 years ago. It's an amazing photograph, and we have to pay for it. And we've got to pay for it if we want to use it. I've only got the use of it for 10 years. And I don't know if I publish a second edition, which I hope to, whether they're going to expect me to pay all over again.
So somebody's benefiting, making a big buck somewhere abroad with these pictures.
Yes, with these pictures. And it's our pictures. It's beautiful pictures. And we should have it on posters, we should have it in galleries, we should have it wherever. And it should be it's our heritage.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I think
we can have an image also on our notes, on our money.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, wherever we can. But wow, just look at the eyes. Just look at I don't have the book.
Yeah, she's so regal. I mean, it's just a great pictures.
Yeah, it's a genuine story. It's a real story. It's not a fake story,
And a beautiful one, very inspirational one.
Yes.
And we have you to thank for this seminal work.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
We are nearing the end. Is there anything that you like in conclusion? There's something that you like to add to our conversation?
I'd like to appeal to everybody to really think about this situation, or this position of, how do we, take ownership of our work. I'd also like to say that I hope that people will support this initiative that I'm taking vigorously. And then thirdly, I'd like to say that we must stand firm and not be sidetracked and not squander the legacy of Charlotte Maxeke, not squander the legacy of Steve Biko and Nelson Mandela. At the moment, all the indications are that we are on the road to squandering these legacies, that these people did all this for us to reach a certain point, and now we are trashing.
We don't show appreciation. There's no appreciation.
We're trashing. We're going to go wild. We're going to be fighting one another, and we're going to, bring the country to its knees. And enough of us must be able to say, we are not going to tolerate this. We don't want it, and we have to stop. We have to stop. Get up and stop it.
Yeah.
And face the difficulties and see how to solve it. But we can do it. We've done it so many times, and I know we can do it. But we've got to just pause. We've got to pause and remember Mom Charlotte. Remember Steve Biko. Remember, Madiba and many others. And know that they gave us a gift.
And treasure their memories.
And we have to give those gifts again. We have to give our lives as gifts to the next generation.
To the next generation. What a beautiful way of ending this wonderful conversation. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I must apologize again that I was disappointed by some technical issues, but I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you to the organizers.
Okay.